Why, hello, everyone, and welcome to Joleen's Happy Time Craftcast. I'm indeed Joleen, and I'm very excited to welcome you to today's episode, installment, issue. It's a lovely day here in Minnesota, and I am so excited that you are joining me from wherever you may be. If you're joining us live, thank you so much. Or if you're listening a little bit later on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, thank you for that as well. I really appreciate it. So today I am very excited to talk to actually a new friend and our guest for today. Her name is Sondrasa, and she is a quilter, specifically an art quilter. So just imagine my delight at finding another human being who loves the world of art and then combines that with quilting because born and raised by a quilter. So I feel like I know a little bit about quilting, but I don't know a whole lot about art quilting. So I'm very excited to welcome Sondrasa to the Happy Time Craftcast, and I know you two will do a good job of saying hello to her. Look at
Hey.
that. Hey, you are joining us from your studio in Colorado. Is that correct?
Yeah, mile high and happy and sunshine, right?
Oh, that like always true or just particularly true today?
I mean, it's springtime. So, we had a couple inches of snow 2 days ago, and now it's going to be almost 80 degrees tomorrow. So,
I know, what is that? Like, I am a hot person, so I just want it to be like 60, 64, 62, 64. Like that, those are my favorite like temperatures.
right, with a nice light breeze to kind of keep it
Yes.
not. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Well, so, I said a little bit about, you are like the founder and what the executive everything at
I like to
Art,
call it the creative guru.
right? The
I try not
creative
to take myself too seriously.
the creative guru at Art, and it's Art Quilts by Design.
Yep.
Correct. So, can you help explain to our crafty listeners what exactly is an art quilt?
You know, art quilting can be taken so seriously depending on who
Right.
you ask. There, for example, in quilting, there's the modern quilts, and
Mhm.
they are very focused on what art quilt is and what a modern quilt is, and they have a very rigid definition. And to me, art should have some sort of meaning or have some sort of purpose that it's trying to portray. But for me, I'm not always looking for a deeper meaning when I create. My quilts are usually flowers and bees or butterflies, or I just released one that had seahorses. And sometimes there's a deeper meaning, but when I'm creating, I don't really think about it. Like, I released one at the beginning of the year. It's called Cocoon Dreams, and it's a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. And when I drew it, I really wasn't thinking about the reason I'm doing this. But then after creating it and looking at it, it's like, oh, I can see what like subconsciously I was thinking about, right? So, you know, most art has a deeper meaning, but art can also just be beautiful. It can be there to
Agreed.
make you smile and be beautiful.
Agreed. Well, I mentioned born and raised by a quilter, and you you might be able to speak to this. So, my quilter mom, she kind of scares me a little bit with her quilting rules and like all of the precision and the accuracy and like there's no like when she's working on a project, other than her fabric choices, it doesn't always seem to be that there's a lot of freedom. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, just like with anything in the world, it takes so many different kinds of people to make
Right.
what something is. And depending on how rigid she is, because I don't know your mom, but we have a term called quilt police. So when somebody is super rigid, not only with their work, but when they look at other people's work and go, oh, well, you didn't do that the correct technique. Oh, well, we call them pearl clutchers, and they're just
Right,
like,
right.
oh my God, you did. So I don't know if your mom is that level, you know what I mean? But
She's
my
not quite
mom's a
that
quilter too, and she used to be very rigid, but
right.
having me with my, like, loosey-goosey kind of technique with everything. She's kind of learned to loosen up and, like, not,
Right.
if it's better to be done than to be perfect, right?
Well, I think with my parent, what I guess what I get afraid of is I feel like quilting isn't accessible to me because my mom's work is so perfect and precise. So, what's really refreshing for me as an artist is to hear you talk about there's a little bit more freedom and there's a little bit more like room for interpretation. And I never knew that was available to me inside of quilting.
Oh, man, I tell you what, quilting has so just a little back history. I went to college for dual concentration in fine arts of woodworking and ceramics. And for
So
woodworking, you have to be so precise and you have to,
Mhm.
very accurate. But then when I found quilting and I found fiber, and it was just one of those things that, oh, huh. And you're always afraid when you start a new craft that,
Mhm.
okay, am I going to be a craft hopper? Am I going to be like, oh, I'm going to do scrapbooking
Wait,
today.
pause.
Next week
Did
I'm going to
you
crochet.
You said craft hopper.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna totally steal that because I've been one of those in my time, but I love that we have, like, an identity. That's so cool.
Right?
Okay.
Well, and I was right there for the longest time because,
Yeah.
I like to crochet, I like to do
Oh,
amigurumis, I liked to do scrapbooking and all this other stuff, and then I found quilting, and I haven't gotten bored with it. Like, I've
right.
been quilting for over 14 years now almost, and I've not been bored. There's so many different types of quilting. Like we talked about, there's modern quilting,
Mhm.
and I'm an art quilter, so I do raw edge applique. There are people who do
Mhm.
just piecing or just hand sewing or just like it's never ending of opportunities and techniques that you can learn and try and enjoy.
Mhm. That's really, really refreshing to hear. And in fact, here in our comments, I'm wondering for those of you who are listening live, if you have indeed heard that, it's almost like two separate hobbies. One hobby is collecting all the things for your arts and crafts, and then the
Mhm.
other hobby is actually doing them. And
Right?
I am just so glad to know that maybe I can belong to this quilting community.
Anybody can belong.
See,
Like,
I think
quilters are
you
some
need
of the nicest people you're ever gonna meet, and I'll tell you what, just like with most crafts, quilters, we if we're sitting there, like, I do a lot of travel work and English
yeah,
paper piecing, which we'll talk about later, but
yeah,
I'll be sitting at my daughter's, scout meetings or,
yes,
practices and things, and I'm always having a project in my hands because,
me
I
too.
gotta have my hands busy. Somebody
Same.
asks me what I'm doing, and I'm more than happy to show you, to get your hands in there, because at the end of
Mhm.
the day, I want you to be addicted to the same craft as I am, so I have more people to share this with, right?
Right, so we have
And
community, we have
mhm,
strength in numbers.
exactly. I'm not so alone and so, like, obsessive if there's other people I know who do it
Right.
too. Yeah.
So, Sandrasi, you might appreciate that in our live comments, we've got some people kind of adding to our conversation by saying, "Hello, my name is Vicky, and I'm a craft hopper."
Craft Hoppers Anonymous.
That's
I
right,
hear
that's right, we should
you.
have our own little handshake for sure. And Lisa too, Lisa's like, "Yeah, me too, me too." Well, thank you for being in our comments, that's so cute. Okay, so I feel welcome to the community of quilters, and so here's another question I have for you, because I've seen on your website that you talk a lot about raw edge applique and English paper piecing, and I have another little confession that so what I do is I make fabric books
Mhm.
and I use textile waste. I have a couple of friends that are interior designers, and every year they have so much fabric for me
Yeah.
from their sample books, and just the amount of fabric that goes into the garbage is astounding to me.
It's
And
disgusting.
Oh, disgusting is a great word.
Yeah.
And kind of my thing is repurposing books especially, but also fabric. So in my fabric book, what I will do is I will just freehand cut a rainbow out of, say, 6 different colors, and then I will whip stitch or border stitch or blanket stitch that into place.
Yep.
So can I say that I'm appliquing if I don't?
100%.
Again,
A
I did not
hundred
know that.
percent.
I did not know that.
All applique is at the very rudimentary definition of applique is taking a shape of fabric of material of some sort and putting it down onto a surface. It
So
doesn't
I'm
matter what stitch or anything. You've
so
applique.
so is this raw edge applique, or is that when you have to, like, because I've seen my mom do it, where she presses under the raw edge and then she kind of hides the edge.
Mhm.
So what?
So that what your mom does is called turn under applique.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what you're
Yucky.
doing is raw edge, and a
Too
lot of what
hard.
I do is raw edge, right?
What does that
Because
mean? Is that what I do,
yeah,
but
that's
didn't
what you
know
do.
it?
So you leave the edge
Oh,
exposed, right?
yeah, so
And
you
there's a
get a
couple
little
different
fiber.
and depending on how you finish it, like you say you do the satin stitch or you might do a blanket stitch or
Mhm,
depending on how you finish it, you're doing it onto paper, right? So you're not going to really wash it or use it in that way,
mhm,
but over time it's still going to fray if you
mhm,
haven't
mhm.
covered that
Which
edge.
I love. I
Um
love the fray.
yeah, exactly. And, that's exactly what raw edge is about. So, over time, depending on the stitch, you're going to get more fraying. So, a lot of people like that fray. They'll
Mhm,
specifically do like a blanket stitch or something like that. But for
mhm,
some work that you want washed, if you want to do raw edge, but you also want to wash it and not have it fray to bits, you do the satin stitch, which is I've got a couple projects behind me that I just finished satin stitching because that's going to give you more long term, wear and tear, and if you have to
mhm.
wash it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and that's
Interesting.
really why you turn under too, is that way,
It
especially like for a baby blanket or something like that,
Mhm.
you want to be able to have that edge,
Durability,
protected.
right.
Mhm.
So, okay, so I understand raw edge applique, and that's basically what I'm doing. My mom's doing turn under. So, what is English paper piecing?
English paper piecing. So I am a self-proclaimed English paper piecing addict. I should have my
You said
own
that in
EPP anonymous right there. Once you start, honestly, it's addicting. So I'm gonna introduce you to my new
please.
love, and I hope you become addicted too. So
Right.
English paper piecing has a very long history, all the way back to Jane Austen times when she was
Mhm.
writing her books. If you go to her museum, that she actually has some English paper piecing quilts on her bed that she
Okay.
personally made. And what it is taking paper in different shapes, usually very geometric, and
Okay.
you're sewing them together by hand typically. There's been a new movement that allows for a lot of machine sewing, which helps people who can't, do the hand process. But for me, I'll just show you. I've got a whole basket here. I'm working on a new project. And so for example, so this is the shape that I have, right?
Right.
I'm calling it my tipsy block. And if I flip it around, you can see there's paper there, right? Yeah.
What?
So all I've taken are these paper pieces. I've cut them out of cardstock. I then take my fabric and I baste around it. I
Okay.
do it with thread. There's all sorts of different. Again, there's 100 different ways to do anything. But then I sew it together, and the whole reason why you want to do this is
Mhm.
because you can kind of see there's these Y seams, right, where this piece and then this piece connect. You get
Yes.
that little Y there. And so what this allows you to do is do that by folding the papers and hand sewing, and then you can get that seam without, like, if you do it on a machine, it is
It seems
very
so hard.
finicky and trying to get just right,
Mhm.
and it's a headache. I don't do Y seams on a machine. I'll do English paper piecing.
So
Um
English paper piecing is allows you to get those corners to
mhm,
meet up where you have a fabric change.
yep.
Okay.
Well, and it allows for very geometric
Sure.
um forms and patterns and all that sort of thing. Like, I'm sure you've heard of milleflore because it's an
Yes.
Italian glass where it's the flowers, and
Mhm.
you can have 100 flowers, right?
Right.
And there are quilts out there that are English paper piece that are called milleflore quilts that are just these triangles and hexagons and pentagons, and they make these florets. And depending on
Cool.
where you place your fabric and the contrast and
Mhm.
whether you're fussy cutting or not, you can get these really beautiful, intense quilts that are just chef's kiss.
And those are done through this process of English paper piecing
Hmm.
because when you think about it, when you're trying to get two hexagons to line up, right? And make like a bee pattern or something, or a
Mhm.
hive pattern. That sounds incredibly difficult.
It when you don't know the technique behind it, it can feel
Mhm.
very daunting. But once
Right.
you learn how it goes together, and hexagons, 1-inch hexagons are your traditional English paper piecing. It's
Okay.
the grandmother's blossom, and you
Right.
have all sorts of old school quilt patterns from like my grandmother's age. That is just 1-inch hexagons. You know, being very scrappy. Like for example,
Yes.
you were talking about fabric waste. I
Yes.
hate fabric waste. I keep bags all over of
Mhm.
all of my little scraps from my applique and from all that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And one of my favorite quilts that I've ever made, I called Rainbow Connection. It was 1/4 inch hexagons, so itty bitty tiny little ones. But I used all of my scraps, and I was able to make
Mhm.
this kaleidoscopic almost rainbow. Um, yeah, it took
I
me a little
love
bit.
all those words you're saying. Like, I
Yeah,
love everything you're saying. And I'm I can't even imagine it because I feel like I have kind of sausagey fingers. I couldn't even imagine
I've got short, stubby little fingers. You can do
like
it. Yeah.
holding something so small. Like, it seems like
The older I get, the harder
impressive.
it gets because your joints, but I did this
Right.
like 7 years ago, so I was younger then.
Air
Somebody
quote.
asked if I leave the cardstock in. No, at the end of the day, you do take the cardstock out. So, for
Right.
example, the example I'm showing on screen, and for the people who are listening later, um, I have to once this hexagon in the center is completely surrounded by these thirds, right?
Mhm.
So now I can cut it all out and remove the paper.
That
So at
must be
the end of
really
the day,
satisfying. Is that, like, kind
mhm,
of a fun part?
yeah. So for this example, this is a mug rug, and it's all English paper piecing with some raw edge in the center, and you can feel and you can see it's very soft and
Yeah.
malleable. There's no paper left in here.
Oh my gosh, Sandra, my mind is blown a little bit because I had no idea what English paper piecing was. I thought maybe it was like, let's say I have a flower and my flower has different shades in it. So I thought I was making little teeny tiny pieces of paper and maybe some fusible web or something to like hold it all together. I had like my imagination came up with
Yeah.
like a whole story behind
Oh,
what it is.
you're that technique that your brain's thinking up, you're going down the foundation, paper piecing. There's a whole nother technique that is
Oh,
all about
I okay, so
like,
that is kind of a thing too, right?
that is I
Oh,
tell you, quilting is 1,000 different techniques and 1,000 different
yeah,
styles all under the same like family umbrella. You know what I
right, so
mean?
not really like a tree, more like a nice big bush of
Yeah, it's a huge
options and
bush.
branches,
Like
right?
it's a huge bush, and depending, who you talk to, there's 100 different ways that you can do it.
Right,
So,
right, for sure, for sure. Okay, so you are a art quilt designer.
yes.
Right? So you create patterns that folks can download and purchase.
Yep.
And I've looked through, I love the seahorse so
Thank you.
much. That is just the most adorable thing. And I also really love, is it peonies and bees or bees and
Bees and
peonies?
peonies. Yep.
I love that one because here on my farm, I have a lot of both.
Yeah.
So when you're coming up with a new pattern, where are you looking for inspiration or are you more the type of artist where inspiration strikes?
Uh, I don't know how I would classify it where I get, because, like with any art professional or just normal
Mhm.
person, you get those creative blocks, right? And I had a huge creative block a couple years ago. It was like a 4-year block where I didn't touch quilting or anything like that. And recently, I've just been it's just been cranking. Like my brain won't stop thinking. I lay at night just kind of like, I wish I could sleep, but man, that would make a really great pattern. Like, and a lot of these things are taken from my experiences in my childhood or
Sure.
like places I've been, like bees and peonies, for example. I lived in Pennsylvania for 12 years.
Mhm.
My favorite plants that I grew in my garden were peonies. And I'm like, oh,
Mm.
that would be great. And then I combined
Mhm.
English paper piecing into it as well for the background. And it was like this great, that was the first pattern I actually launched. So it was like this statement of, this is who I am. These are the things I love. And I hope you like it
Mhm.
too.
Right. I can identify with so many things that you just shared because, and on my next episode of the Happy Time Craftcast, my guest is Lacey Walker. And Lacey and I are going to be talking about the unstoppable need to create.
Yes.
And it sounds like you might be in the same camp as Lacey and
I've
I.
got 5 years worth of ideas that
Right.
I probably won't get to
Exactly.
for 10 years. You know what I mean? It's just,
Exactly.
it doesn't stop.
I totally understand. So what's on your work table right now? Like, what are you excited to be working on right now?
So right now, H&H is a convention next week in Chicago. And so I've got a lot of different projects that I'm kind of making as companion pieces for a new pattern that I'm having come out at March or May 14th. It's not March, silly goob.
Yeah.
But yeah, so May 14th, I'm having this quilt called Tipsy Tea that'll be
Yeah.
coming out. That is English paper piece base with raw edge applique combined. I've never really seen that done before. So I was like,
Makes sense to me
yeah, and
because I
I'll
now
show you a couple
understand
of the
all those
side
words.
projects that I'm doing. Like,
So, okay, so let me see if I got that. So it is going to be an English paper piecing tipsy tea. Is it
yeah.
kind of like a mug rug too, or is it something different?
So I have all sorts of like, this is the first time I've made a suite of
Oh,
products to go with my quilt, because the quilt
yeah.
itself is going to be about 55 by 65. So it's not huge by quilting standards, so it's not a queen
Okay.
size, but it's a good size for a lot of hand sewing and things.
Great.
And then I also have the Tipsy Mug Rug that is going to be coming out. I have something called the Tipsy Topper, which is like this cute little tapered topper that you can
Oh,
make
great.
for like a side table or something. I have a pattern. Have you ever heard of Yazzie bags?
Yes.
Okay, so I made this pattern for a Yazzie bag, right?
Oh my
It's
goodness sakes.
applique with my English paper piecing, and it's a pocket, so I can put the pattern in.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Okay. If
Yeah,
you are listening, we're going to link this in the show notes. It's colorful, it's geometric. I can see and understand the English paper piecing and why it would be necessary in this project. And
it
oh
hooks
my
you.
gosh, the tea mug,
Right?
the
The teapot, I
teapot.
love it. I love it.
Ah,
It's
I
I
love
love.
it.
Yeah, so the quilt itself is going to have a lot of those different things, and like, so this isn't a pattern. This is something I made for my friends over at Aliso. They're the
Yeah.
iron company. I'm going to be doing a demo for them there, and I
Mhm.
made this bag for them. It's their large iron bag, and you can see one side has just a panel of the English paper piecing. I've got large hexagons and smaller hexagons, and then I've done a strip of my thirds along the top. And then on the other side, I have more of the English paper piecing with the applique. And it, hopefully you guys can see, I did satin stitch around it to give it more of a distinct look.
That
So
is, again, we are going to link that in the show notes. And I know you're listening, but I've been sitting here with my mouth dropped open for like 15 seconds. That is so beautiful. Okay. It's a bag for your iron.
mm-hmm. Yep.
That is so cool. I don't iron, but I want the bag.
I love Aliso. They're fantastic irons. They're smart irons. I love tech. So yeah.
That's
This
so
is, we're
cool.
not sponsored by Aliso, but I
Right,
love their
right. But they're
irons and
just
I'll
great
shout them
people. Right.
out. Yeah.
That's
So
so
yeah, like
awesome.
they've got, yeah, it's a
I
beautiful
want it to
bag.
be like a cat house or something.
Right.
Like,
That's what some of my friends in my Discord were like. They're like, "Are you making a carrier?" I'm
right,
like,
like just a
"No."
little mesh, on the end or something. Oh my
I
gosh,
mean,
that is fantastic.
because honestly, the one thing I love about English paper piecing is I make fabric. And that's kind of
Sure.
what I've done here is you sew it all together and then you can cut it into any shape you want. So if you're a purse maker, for example, and you don't want to use just one fabric, do
Right.
some English paper piecing, and then you've got a really distinct, one of a kind purse right there that no one's ever going to have again because no one's going to make the same shapes and the same cuts just like you.
That sounds perfect for someone like me who gets really excited about waste and garbage and using the
Mhm.
things that we would otherwise throw away. And
Yep.
Sandra, those are really exciting projects. Are you looking at the comments? Like,
I
oh,
see it, and I appreciate all the love. I really
right,
appreciate
lots
it.
of love,
I've
which
been pouring my heart into this project for over a year now,
it shows.
and
It's
yeah,
amazing. It's amazing.
thank you.
So when you say it's a project for them, is that does that just mean I love you, here's a gift, or does it mean it's going to be accessible to others? Like, what does it have a
Um,
future?
I don't know if it has a future because
Okay,
I don't
okay.
know if anyone's because other people have made bags like taken an Oliso iron bag, small ones, large ones, and done their own thing, like whether it's
Ah,
embroidery
I
or
see.
I made one for market last year for quilt market, and
Okay,
it was based off of my koi quilt, aquatic melody, and so it's all applique and it's a small bag and it's got my koi swimming around it and all that kind of thing.
beautiful.
So I'm not planning on releasing a pattern for the koi one, but like if people enjoyed this pattern enough, I could definitely see, writing something up as like a bonus for people because it is a little bit of hand sewing and a little bit of uh what do I want to say? A little bit of persnicketyness,
Sure,
because you're hand sewing all of this in and you're doing turn edge applique to the panel itself. Because in order
right.
to have the curved edges and it being nice and clean, I have to turn that under.
Right, so it's nice and it's impressive. It's
Thank you.
wildly impressive.
Thank you.
I am speechless, and our the folks in the comments are like, "Jolene doesn't get speechless." So, like, I'm like, it's so, so impressive. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you shared that with us. So, okay. So I just feel one so grateful to know that quilting and applique and English paper piecing are accessible to makers like me. And I did not know that before, 20 minutes ago. So thank you so much for that. And then I guess too, I have some other questions for you about
Yeah.
so I think you've I think you've said that you've been a lifelong maker, lifelong creator. And so have I. And you have a story about you were crocheting with your mom and sisters, like,
Yeah.
all at the same time. Can you tell
We
us a little
were.
bit about that?
So my mom was a big craft topper herself back in the
Yeah,
day, but her longest stint was crochet. Like I
yeah.
remember Christmases where she'd make 8 or 9 Afghans for everybody in the family. Like it was intense. But I think I was around 11 or 12,
Mhm,
and she taught myself and my two younger sisters all how to crochet.
mhm.
And so we'd have, I don't know if you remember back in like the 90s, for those of you who are old enough, the little puff paints were a
Yes,
thing.
oh, yes.
So like she made these little tote bags with our names and little puff paints and all that. And so it was like, oh, so cute. And then we'd have our thread, our yarn and our crochet, and we were sitting in the doctor's office and all three of us were just sitting there crocheting while my mom was crocheting on a bigger project, and like the little old lady was looking at us like we
Mhm.
were, had 3 heads or something, because like we were little kids who were nice and quiet and
Right.
busy doing our crochet.
Well,
Yeah.
that story, like, struck a chord with me because, it was about 10 years ago, and our girls were 16 and 11. And I taught them both to crochet, and it was a snow day here in Minnesota. So they were both home from school, and I taught them how to make infinity scarves with large
Oh,
yarn and really large hooks. And it's just one of my most precious memories with both of our girls,
yeah.
and that they had these big, chunky, like infinity scarves on. And it was just like, I was the mom in the scenario where you were the
Uh-huh.
daughter, and I just think that, I was raised by a crafter maker, and you were raised by a crafter maker, and so, for me, I didn't know, honestly, until I was an adult, that there would be people who would say, "I'm not creative," or "I'm not artistic," or "I'm not crafty." It To me, it was in the same category as people who say they don't play games. Like,
Right.
I didn't know there was an option that you don't play games with your family or you don't play cards, like it absolutely, like it was very eye-opening for me that not
Mhm.
all families do this kind of thing. Can you
Right.
relate?
Oh my god, yeah. Like it's really funny cuz like in this industry, in the quilting
Yeah.
industry, um a lot of the people around me are older than me, and that's
Mhm,
fine.
mhm.
I connect and I love these people. But there's a little bit of that idea of, oh, well, I'm old, I don't do technology, or I'm
Right.
not going to do that, or I'm because
Mhm.
I'm a Twitch streamer and I make content and all that kind of stuff. And I keep getting the, oh, well, quilters aren't going to go do that. Quilters aren't going to watch
Mm.
Twitch. And I'm like, well, no, there's quite a few of us over there. And, Missouri Star Quilt, they started YouTube how many years ago? And now
Right,
YouTube's a normal thing for most quilters.
right,
Like,
right.
and for me, I'm a huge video game nerd, on top of
Mm.
crafting and all that other stuff. And in the end of it, my mom's the one who taught me how to play video games. Like, she
My
still
mom
plays video
too.
games. Exactly. And so, like, when people tell me, like, oh, well, older people don't play video games, or, oh, well, women don't really play I'm like, you're full of horse manure. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Like, my mom taught me how to use a computer, and she taught me how to play video games and all
Mhm,
this other stuff. Like, don't tell me what,
mhm.
can or can't happen, So
Right,
it's interesting to see how people have these biases of the way they grew up or what they knew, and so
right.
it boggles their mind that anybody could be anything but, right?
Right, exactly. Well, and I said it an episode or 2 back, but, my mom sprained her thumb playing too much, Mario Brothers. When when we got our first Nintendo, my mom, like, was playing it so much that she had, like, a stress injury on her
Oh my
thumb,
goodness.
and and I swear I can never hear like "bling," the sound of them, jumping and hitting their
Yeah.
head and getting the coins. Like I forever associate that sound with my mom because she was so good at Mario Brothers. So she was, she's a leader in that. And I love that about her, obviously. So I'm a gamer too, which was probably a surprise
I love it.
to my followers because I've never really talked about it. But I actually bought my own video game that I don't really share with my family.
Oh,
I
now I
bought
gotta know. I'm nosy
Yeah, well,
AF. You gotta
I
tell
bought
me.
the VR thing,
Oh.
and not the really expensive one from Apple, the other one,
Okay.
and I have been known to play quite a lot of Beat Saber.
Oh my gosh, that game looks like so much fun. Like, I really want to get. I
I
don't have
love it
VR, but
so
I've been
much.
eyeing it.
I love it so much, and in fact, just this last week, I saw somebody, I didn't know this was possible, but they were streaming
Mhm.
their Beat Saber screen, and they were like an avatar, and they were
Yeah.
doing it on a TikTok live, and I was like, "I think my followers' minds would be blown if they knew that I too am a Beat Saber person." But I don't just go wing, wing, wing like that. I like
Yeah. You gotta
dance
get
and do
into it,
right,
right?
like I
Yeah.
I mean, I do all kinds of crazy things because it's such a great, like, cardiovascular experience, like, I love
Right?
it so much, yeah, and I think that entitles me to say that I'm a gamer, right?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
definitely
I thought
are.
so,
And
I thought so.
honestly, it doesn't matter where you go, there's always gonna be those gatekeepers, whether it's
Right,
in crafting or gaming, like, "Oh, well, that's not a real game." Like, so many people do mobile games nowadays. Like, I
right,
know plenty of people who do Candy Crush and all that kind of stuff. It's like, that's still gaming.
right. I
Most
saw
mobile games, like, your
Mhm.
phone is stronger than most computers were back when we were kids, right? Like,
Right, right, right,
you're gaming, honey. I'm sorry. You're a gamer
right.
now, okay?
Well, I saw somebody again on TikTok this past week, and she was streaming, and she was organizing a store. So she had, like, boxes, and, like, the boxes were outside, and the
The
game was
supermarket simulator. I know what game you're talking
okay, I
about.
didn't know what it was called. But she would, like, go out and get the boxes, and then she would bring them in and put them where they go, and it was like this all spatial kinda thing, and then she was like, "Okay, friends, we're ready for the sushi." And I was like, What's the sushi?" Like, I was I was so invested.
Isn't that funny?
So
Simulators have just really come up, and,
oh,
like, I
yeah.
hear people being like, "Well, why?" Because like, pay what is it? Lawn mowing simulator
Right,
and, power wash simulator, they're like the dad games, and the people are always like, "Well, why would you wanna do that?" I'm like, "Well, because it's, like, relaxing. Like, I don't
Right.
have to actually do anything, and I don't have anybody telling me what to do,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, since we're on this topic, I wanted to also ask you, can you say a little bit more about Twitch? Um, I have pretty limited, I mean, we're streaming to there now,
Yep.
and I'm not as present as I would like to be. Can you tell us a little bit about the live streaming that you do there and what
Yeah.
folks might see?
I'd love to. I've been streaming on and off over at Twitch for 8 years now. It's kind of it kind of boggles my mind when I think about how long I've been over there.
Right.
Um, but like, so for anyone who doesn't know, Twitch, is associated with gamers
Mhm.
primarily, right? That's the big thing. Whether it's Mr. Beast or whatever. Um, but
Mm.
Twitch started as, I want to say it was Josh TV or something like that, and it
Right,
was
right.
all about cooking and IRL streams and crafting and all that kind of thing.
That's
So
us. That's
that's
totally
like
us.
the
Yeah.
the base of what Twitch, was, and then it got bought by Amazon and gaming became really big and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff happened, but there's still tons of creators over on Twitch. Like, I do sewing and quilting streams, but there are leather workers and there's crocheters, there are paper workers and quill artists and painters, and like, there's a creators and makers category that I stream in, and then there's an art category for like all sorts of different artists. So if you're
Amazing.
looking for, that kind of content,
Mhm.
Twitch is there for if you look for it. And so what I do is, I've got this is my studio for anyone on the live stream. I have like 6 different cameras, so I can be over at my cutting table, I can be over at my sewing machine, I can be over here. And so we're always just kind of like, I'm a very casual person. And I've been known to talk like a sailor, quote unquote. I'm not afraid of cuss words, so if you come to stream, you're gonna get a couple, and I'm not ashamed of it. But yeah, so we just kind of hang out. I have a very small, tight knit community that we'll talk about what the newest game
Mhm.
is or what's going on in their life. I have somebody who's been with me from the beginning, and
Mhm.
they're now in college for criminal justice, doing all sorts. And so it's just really interesting to kind of like
Mhm.
see that community grow with you, and yeah.
Right. Well, and I live stream on TikTok. I used to do it so much more often than I've been able to recently, just because it's the beginning of retreat season here at Big Raven
Right.
Farm. So I'm busy all day and all night lately, it seems, but it'll quiet down here in a little bit. But a lot of my folks who have joined me on live have become friends, like in real life,
Mhm.
and they are moderators and they help me because, earlier when we were talking about pearl clutchers, we have a lot of those in the world of book arts as well.
Yeah.
Lots of folks who don't quite understand the problem that we have with books and waste.
Yeah.
And they, get pretty personal and mean, coming at me for my destruction. And I've been called all kinds of names, it's ridiculous. But I would be lost without my friends and moderators in those spaces because they do such a great job of taking care of the language pearl clutchers need so that I don't have to do it
Mhm.
myself. So do
Yeah.
you have moderators on Twitch as well?
I do,
Yeah.
and, honestly, moderators are like the unsung hero of
Oh.
any stream, whether you stream on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok,
Mhm.
Facebook, whatever, because they're who welcome your community.
Mhm.
I try my best to welcome people as they come into the stream, but sometimes I miss somebody.
Oh,
So the
yeah.
moderator's there to be welcoming, and they're like the face of the community. And, you know,
Definitely.
um, I I had somebody come in, I think it was last week when I streamed, and they were like, "Oh, you're an American. I know how to fix that." And I'm like, Ashemi." I call out to my moderator, and he
Yes,
brought out his band hammer as soon as the guy started going off. It's like, "No, we don't need that
we
here. Our
don't,
vibe is
right.
chill. We're cozy here." Like,
Yes. We say, they're gonna go meet Janet and get thrown into the void.
I love that. I
Feel free to
love
use
that.
it. Feel free,
Yeah,
feel free.
I will. Yeah, the worst is like, okay, I'm a curvaceous woman, right? I know that I have a mirror, and I'll always have somebody come in and be like, "Oh, you're fat." I'm like, "Yeah, so what's what's your point? Like, Like,
Won't
you've
it
gotta be
be
like some 13-year-old thinking that yeah.
well, and won't it be a great day when, like, that is not an insult, like, it happens too with, my kids, they identify as queer, queer is their word,
Yeah.
and, like, when we can stop throwing that around like an insult, like,
Mhm.
I feel quite passionate about that as a mom of queer kids, that I'm really tired of it being an insult. It's not in our
Right.
family, it's troubling to me that we're still having those battles, but
Right,
I'm with you.
and why people can't be more inclusive?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
right? I don't understand, honestly.
Well, like you, I'm so grateful for my moderators. They
Mm.
we even have we have a little text chat, offline so I can, you know, talk and say things that I might not
You have a
necessarily.
Discord? Do you have a Discord?
I do have a Discord,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I always use. Like, I
Oh,
get
that's
into the
good.
Discord chat and just, like, yeah, ham it up.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, I have to go back to a question that I missed
Of course.
earlier, and that was we talked about it for just a little nanosecond, but do you have a little project for our listeners to try?
Yeah, like, so I'm all about the English paper piecing right
Yes.
now, and so I've shown that a couple times during the stream, but it's called the Tipsy Mug Rug, right?
So
It's
so
really
cute.
super simple, and
Okay.
um it's just a 2-inch hexagon on the front, and
Okay.
then I've got 6 2-inch hexagon thirds is what these points are called. And then
Okay.
on the back, all it is a 3.5-inch hexagon,
And
right?
that's what kinda brings it all together, the paper.
Yeah, so well, and there's
Mhm.
no paper in here, so all you have to do is do the English paper piecing
Mhm.
front. You can put applique on it if you'd like. I'm gonna have a pattern over on my site that I'm putting up for this specifically, and you guys will have, the print friendly version. So if you don't have, you know, papers at home, you know what I mean, you can put in cardstock, print it out, cut it out, and do all of that. And then the tracings for the applique, and then all you have to do is make the form, and then I do it so you pillow it, right? So
Yes.
I've put I'll take the front and pretend this is a solid, and I just put them right sides together, and then I'll sew around the whole thing, hand sew, and then I'll leave a side open. So then I can cut all my papers out,
Yep.
and then I can flip it. So then all you're left with is a nice soft little mug rug.
I love that so much. And can you hold it up one more time? In
Yeah,
the center, is it a teapot or a tea
it's a
mug?
tea bag. It's a little
Oh,
tea
it's a tea
bag.
bag! Of
Yeah, it's a
course
little tea
it
bag.
is. I get it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
love, so
so
applique
cute.
is really lovely because, like, you can see I have like a little moon and stars for like where the
Yes.
little leaves would be, and in this one, I have to be an edge lord, and I have a little skull in this tea bag.
Love it. I love it so much. Well, and I think you also have a little surprise for our listeners, do you not? Something that I think they're gonna be so excited to hear.
Do I? I'm a goldfish. What is my surprise?
You have a 15%
I
off.
do. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you guys can go, you can take this code and get 15% off of anything on my store. I've got plenty of confident beginner patterns like bees and
Mhm.
peonies. That one's great because it has a lot of detailed instructions for English paper piecing, as well as a really detailed guide to
Mhm.
what exactly goes into applique. And
Right.
then on top of it, all of my patterns come with full scale size applique layout guides. So,
Okay.
when you're trying to place your shapes, that's one of the things is, you could have a picture and just like, oh, can I try and do that? But for my work, I have a full layout so you can like lay your piece on top and really get the details as where things are placed.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you. And I think that the folks listening in either place, what I'm seeing in our comments too is that I just can't say enough how delighted I am that this now feels accessible to me. Because I am definitely a messy maker. I am terrible at precision. Like, it's just not my thing. And so I didn't know that I could do some of these things. But English paper piecing, it sounds like that I can do. That's math that I can like wrap my head around.
Yeah. It
Thank you.
really is, and it's never ending, you know. Once you get started, like, you for those in the stream, you can kind of see above my head is this big long kind of unit in the back,
Mhm.
and that is for anyone who's familiar with quilting. There's this really daunting project called the Dear Jane quilt, which
Okay.
was hung in a national quilt museum. It was made by somebody back during the Civil War.
Mhm.
And this person, one day, they're sitting in the museum and they just started sketching every single one of the blocks, and, you know, didn't write any instructions to how to make it, but at least had like diagrams
Mhm.
for it, right? And so the company English or paperpiecing.com, a couple years ago, they came out with the pattern, but they broke it down into English paper piecing. So then you had all these really complicated techniques that, you know, you had no idea how to do, or how did they achieve that back
Mhm.
during the Civil War times. Now you had papers that, you know, all you had to do was wrap the paper around, or wrap the fabric around the paper, and you could make the blocks. Like, made it really super
Amazing.
accessible. So
I am just feel absolutely liberated in knowing this. Like I had no idea. And honestly, I mean, I have had amazing guests on the Happy Time Craftcast, but would you be surprised to know that we are 15 minutes left? We're almost out of time, and I still have so many things that I want to ask you, but I have to say thank you so much for just breathing this like vitality and fresh air into something that I kind of thought was fancy and out of
oh my
reach for me.
god, fancy is like the four-letter word for me. It doesn't matter if I'm cooking or I'm creating. Like, you use the word fancy and it's always like, "Oh, well, that food's too fancy for me. Oh, that thing's too fancy." It's like, no, it's not. It's the way I show
Right.
my love. It's just, you know, it doesn't have
Well,
to be
thank
fancy.
you.
It's just it
Like,
is.
you've breathed a whole lot of fresh air into this entire topic and conversation for me, and I'm really, really grateful, and so thank you.
Well, thank you
For
for
our
having
next
me.
little segment in the Happy Time Craftcast, I'm gonna ask you a series of questions.
Oh,
The
okay,
same
let's do it.
the same 10 questions that I ask everybody. But before I get to that, I just want to remind our listeners about what's going on here at Big Raven Farm. So, lots of retreats coming up. We are gearing up for the Bluff Country Art Studio Tour. Big Raven Farm will be on that tour. It is all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this weekend, April 26th through the 28th. Our home is open as an art studio where you get to
Wow,
come in from 9 to 5 every day and see all of my artwork.
that's
I will
amazing.
also have, it's going to be great. We had about 300 people last year. So we are very excited about this coming up this weekend. I'm also going to have a couple of little make and takes stations where you can try your hand at book folding and see if you love it. Like you said, like if I can get you into my obsession, it's creating community and further validating that I'm not crazy. So so we'll have little make and take sections, and there are 22 other studios on the tour. So that's this
Wow.
weekend. And then also we have about 24 retreats. And I don't know where I am here in the 2024, like how many are over and how many are yet to come, but it's 24 in 2024. So if you are
Wow.
interested in coming to a retreat at Big Raven Farm, I'll link it in the show notes. I do have like so many good things coming up that it probably would just be the best to go to that page and see what fits your fancy. So thank you for taking a look at that. All right, now back to our 10 questions that we ask every guest. And I'm gonna try not to interrupt, but I always kind of add my own. But
Oh,
we'll
no
start here.
worries.
Andres, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
What is your favorite word?
Whimsical.
Are you an Office fan by chance?
No, I've seen the memes, but
Okay,
I've never
okay.
watched it.
The main character, Michael Scott, whimsical is like add a touch of whimsy is like his favorite word. So highly, highly
I think
recommend.
I'm gonna have to go watch it now.
Yeah, yeah, highly recommend. Okay, so what is your least favorite word?
Fancy.
You're like hands down,
Yeah,
no pause. I hate the word
I
fancy. I
hate
love
it.
that.
I hate it.
So you must not have like fancy dishes either, which I love. I love not
Oh, I
having
do. I
fancy
do
dishes.
have some fancy things, and I do own, you know, like, I
But do
have
you like
my
would you
fancy
use them for
Christmas stuff.
normal?
No, I not normally. I've got a 3-year-old, So,
Oh,
like, the
understood, say
fancy
no more.
yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So I have fancy dishes too, and I wish we used them more often, but they can't go in the dishwasher. So we don't use
Yeah, you
them
gotta
because we
hand
don't
wash
wanna
it.
do that step.
Yeah.
But they're black roses with gold
Oh,
edging, so they're kinda rock and roll, so I
that
love
sounds
them. I know,
beautiful.
I love
Oh my
them so, so
gosh.
much. I love so much. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I got a little, like, so why I hate fancy real quick for anyone who's
yeah,
curious. My ex-in-laws, so I love to cook. That's a way that
yeah,
I show my love. Like,
mhm,
so holidays, I will go all out. Like, my grandmother was Southern, so, like, I
yeah.
go all out with all the, and they wouldn't offer to help, but they'd always say, "Oh, well, that's fancy. Oh, that's so fancy. Like, that's too much
Mm,
for us. It's so," so it just kinda, like, in the back of my head, it's like, I'm
sure,
trying to show you my love, and you're
right,
calling my food too fancy. Like, it's
right.
just Southern good old food, like, there's nothing wrong
Mm.
here. So, yeah,
Well, I want some. I'm hungry now too, so, like, that sounds delicious to me.
yeah.
All right. So, what turns you on creatively, spiritually, emotionally? Like, what gets you excited?
What gets me excited? God, that is such a loaded question, really, because,
Sure.
like, you could really pull from anything, right?
Mhm.
Um,
I get excited about garbage.
do you?
I do. Like, I mean, going to the recycling center, my husband teases me all the time. Usually people are putting things in, but I'm taking things out. So when I find, books that have gold gilded edges, I love
Mm,
it and I save them and use the gold in projects. Like, I just love making something new from something that others decided was just going to go to the trash.
I could see that.
Mhm.
So for me then, going along that route, I would have to
Mhm.
say, gardening. Like,
Oh,
that's my happy place, and so going
nice.
to the garden center and seeing all these beautiful
Mm.
plants and flowers, and, that
Mhm.
has a big, deep connection, and it's something I can do. It's like crafting, right? You make it with
Mhm.
your hands, and gardening's the same thing. I get into the
Mhm.
dirt, and I'm putting these things in, and I'm nurturing them and watching them grow,
I
right?
love it too. I'm not I could be better at it if I spent more time weeding,
Time is
right?
the key.
Time
Yeah.
is definitely the key, and we're actually thinking about because we live on a farm, so we're thinking about building a stockade because
Ooh,
there's nothing that we can do to keep our deer out, so we would have
right,
to build like at least a 6 foot, enclosed garden with raised beds,
right.
but my father-in-law did it, and oh my gosh, I'll send you pictures.
Oh,
It's
yes, please.
beautiful. It is like the most they call it their garden. We call it a stockade because I don't know what else you'd call it, but it is just amazing. I'll show you. I'll show you.
Yeah,
It's
please
just
do.
beautiful.
I
It's beautiful.
love, that's one of my things, is like, because here in Colorado, I live
Yes.
outside of Denver, so it's very suburbia. The yard
Yeah.
is very small, but, it's trying to take what you have and trying to make the
Right.
most of it. So, like, I have, like, all this hardscaping planned, and like
Mhm.
levels, and, that kind of thing. It's just, again, time.
Right,
You have
definitely.
to have
Well,
the,
we even did so in our first garden here, like the deer got everything because
yeah,
we didn't think they'd come right up to the house, but they do. They're just like right up to the door. But actually, we did really well for tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, even in pots. Like we didn't need, a big bountiful harvest. We
right.
did pretty well with these little things. So we'll have to talk more about gardening
Yeah.
because I do. I
Well,
love it.
and definitely look into plants that deter deer. Like, for me,
Mhm.
we have tons of rabbits in my neighborhood, and peppermint. Like,
Right?
so I take a pot of peppermint. I won't plant it because it goes absolutely wild,
It
but
does.
I'll
It has
take a pot of
yes.
peppermint, and it'll keep the rabbits out of my garden. So
Oh,
there
that
are ways to keep them away.
right? It's always a battle of nature versus man,
Mhm.
isn't it? Like we have it here all the time. So, I think I know the answer to this, but I mean, we haven't been friends for long, but I think I can kinda guess. What is your favorite curse word?
I mean, I'm always good for a good fuck, you know what I mean? Hell, damn it, shit, right?
Right,
But fuck is my favorite, and
right.
sometimes, like, because again, I have people who call me a sailor, and I'm like, "You don't know a sailor if you think I'm a sailor." But so
Right.
if I'm in company, I'll say, "Suck a pickled egg." Like, that's my
Oh,
way of saying to fuck off, right?
exactly. Well, we actually, so we design and manufacture yoga mats too. That's
Oh, nice.
another one of our businesses, and we have one that is it's the fuck mat, and at the bottom of it, it has all. Seriously, it has all these
Love
boxes,
it.
and so the boxes are it, you, them, me, this, that. And so, like, the idea is you can check off your box
Oh my
because it
god, I
has
love it.
so many, like, it's so
I love
appropriate
we
and
need that
fitting. Just
mat now. Oh
yeah,
my
I know,
god.
right? I know, and it's kind of like it got a whole bad yogi vibe to it, which I totally love. I totally love. So, what sound or noise do you love?
The ocean.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I
I
also
grew up
really
in
like.
Southern California. A lot of my
Oh,
summers
yeah.
were in at the beach, and I miss it, it's one of those things that
Yeah. It sounds very I like the rhythm of that noise. I like the gentle rhythm of those. So what sound or noises do you hate?
um, nails on a chalkboard, or
Yep.
what's my worst is, styrofoam. When
Oh,
you're getting styrofoam out of a box or something, it's just, like, so cringy and,
it
like, just
is
makes me mhm.
agreed. Agreed. Yeah, I agree. I can't, yeah,
I don't even
totally.
wanna think about it, like, makes me stand on
I
edge.
know. Let's go to the next one. So what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
What I would like to attempt, oh goodness.
I'd like to
You
be a
know,
welder.
a welder, that would be
Like
pretty cool.
artistic welding,
Yeah,
but I'm
that I
really
could definitely
clumsy.
see that. Like,
Mhm.
I've had so many different ones, like, I did in-home care, and I
Mhm,
was gonna
mhm.
be an art teacher and all that kinda stuff, but, like, I don't know. Honestly, I it's taking me so long to just be comfortable
Right.
being a designer and a quilter, and, like, that's not a normal thing for most people, and when you tell
Right.
people that, like, they look at you funny like, "No, what do you really do?" Like, "No, this is my day job, this is what I do all day. Yes, I'm a mom, but I also do this." Like,
Right. Well, that's
uh
awesome. Is there one that you would not a profession where you're like, "Nope, not me, not me, not me."
oh my gosh,
I have a long list.
I mean, it's again, like, what do you pick out of the top, right? A
Right.
teacher. I could not be a teacher for
Oh,
well, I
bless.
shouldn't say teaching because, like, I do teach workshops and
Right,
stuff like that
right.
for older people, but when I went to school for art teaching, I quickly learned as good as I was at, like, the book side of
Mhm.
things, I did not wanna babysit other people's kids.
Right. I think that my teacher friends, they seem so like one of my really good friends, she starts counting how many days left in the academic year, like around like not even April, probably in March. And I feel like that what a way to
Well, and
live
it's
your
such an
life, in a
underappreciated profession, like,
right.
seriously, if anything needed a
Exactly.
rehaul, teaching in this
Oh, for
country needs
sure. Just a continual countdown just sounds not great. And she's lovely and loves the kids, but I think the challenge is it's like having 100 different bosses, you
yeah.
know, parents, administration, a state, a school board, all that.
This
So,
test, that test, yeah,
yeah, I'm
exactly.
with you. I'm with you. Okay, so here's my last question. So, if there's an afterlife, right? What would you like the welcome party to say when you get there?
It's about fucking time.
Like now the party can start.
Yeah, like,
Like
"We're
now.
finally here, what took you so long? Let's go, like, we've got some rub in the back, let's have some
Right.
fun, do this." Like,
I I want them to direct me to the craft room. Like just like where can I go? Like where are the supplies? Where can I to me that sounds like a really great way to spend time just where I don't have to stop and do anything else. No chores, no other
no
responsibilities.
no screaming kids, no none
Right.
of that, just, like, peace and time. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, well, thank you so much. This has been one of my favorite episodes. You are so awesome. And like I said,
Aw.
breath of fresh air in the fancy world of quilting, because
Pinkies
now
up,
it's
right?
accessible. It's accessible to us. And we've like broke down a barrier that crafty people can give it a try. And
Yeah,
I'm really,
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 truly, like,
I
and
didn't know that until today.
multimedia, man, we want it all. Come on over, you're gonna have fun.
Awesome. Well, I will be sure to link where they can find you in all of our show notes. And friends, please join me next time where my guest is Lacey Walker, and we're going to be talking about the unstoppable need to create. And it's going to be a really great conversation. I hope you'll join us. So thanks so much, everybody. And we will see you next time on the Happy Time Craftcast.